What's up guys, Cory here, and today we are reviewing the brand new readaptation of the 1989 classic horror film Pet Sematary, based on Stephen King's classic novel. Should this one have stayed dead, or has it risen from the grave? We're going to break it down for you today in Attack of the Review.
In the woods today, LA discovered a charming little landmark.
The Pet Cemetery.
Place to bury our pets and remember them. Might seem scary, but it's not. Perfectly natural. Just like dying is natural.
When Dr. Lewis Creed and his wife Rachel relocate from Boston to rural Maine with their 2 young children, the couple soon discover a mysterious burial ground hidden deep in the woods near their new home.
It's not some campfire story.
Saw these in the trees up there.
They're warnings. The local tribes carved them before they fled. They fear that place. There's something up there.
When tragedy strikes, Lewis turns to his neighbor Judd Crandall, setting off a perilous chain reaction that unleashes an unspeakable evil with horrific consequences.
Something
That cat was dead.
that brings things back.
Cheers.
Based on the 1989 film adaptation of Stephen King's classic novel, this film was directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. The film stars Jason Clarke, John Lithgow, Amy Seimetz, and Jet Lawrence, just to name a few. So Pet Sematary, right? This is a movie that is a classic in the Stephen King community. For me going in, I was expecting a lot from this film. The classic, I mean, it doesn't hold up in today's standards of horror films, especially with some of the new creators that are coming out like Jordan Peele and James Wan, who are really just establishing themselves as great directors and great filmmakers in horror, especially in today's generation and era. But films like Pet Sematary have paved the way for what you can and can't do with a horror film and what psychologically and visually can stimulate horror in the same, film. And it's honestly a very tough thing for a lot of people to go for. It's a lot of things for books or folklore to actually captivate you more through your imagination than film really can, because of its decision making. A lot of films decide to go more psychological over visual, or vice versa, in the pre-production or the writing process. They've already predetermined whether this is going to be a gore fest or if this is going to be a psychological thriller, and a lot of films aren't able to pull both of those off. A film like Pet Sematary, though, really kind of has both of those elements playing for it, and that's what makes it so good. That's what makes Stephen King such a good writer and such a good storyteller, is that a lot of his stories are psychologically disturbing while still giving way to enough reliant visual disturbance to still keep you interested and still give you a little bit of that morbid curiosity that just everyone out there has. And going into this film, that's exactly what I was expecting, was I guess a little bit more of my morbid curiosity to see the way the darkness play out that they were showing off in the trailers of this. But the film honestly was really well put together. It was still something I thought came off very, very creepy. There was great suspense. A lot of times I started to breathe heavy and I could feel my heart start to go faster, and a lot of that was just really well played through the film, and it was only because of how engaged I was in the moments. And in the end of the film, it wasn't necessarily as frightening as I expected it to be, but it was really, more avant-garde towards the horror than I thought it would be. I thought a lot of the aspects they took, there was moments I thought were well played, and there was others I thought were experimental, and I thought that was kind of cool. It was a way that they keep you engaged in the film, and for me, that's a good way of at least going forward from here to see what happens for the next readaptation of a Stephen King book or novel or movie. So let's start with the acting. I gotta give the acting a B for this film because a lot of it relied on the acting, especially in the first act. And if I could just specifically give the cat a grade, I gotta give the cat an A+, because whoever they got to play Church as the cat here was amazing. And the cat was just one of the best parts of the film, because there's a lot that you kind of were expecting to go wrong or not be as good as it could be. It have a little bit more lead from the human characters, but to be honest, the cat stole the show a lot of the time in its own scenes, and that was a big plus for the film going in, because whoever worked with the cat was fantastic and really, really got it to do its job in creating this ominous presence in the film, being what happens to it and how it plays out through the rest of it. But with that being said, no spoilers there, but it's afterwards that plays out through a lot of the characters and a lot of the character development that happens throughout the family, and the bond between Judd that you get there with John Lithgow, and you just start to feel a lot of this machine start working, and it's nice because you feel the characters start to really explore themselves in a new environment in the film, and it's not like they're just these characters that are trying to force themselves into not interacting with a move or having a new lifestyle change or something. That they're really engaging with it, they're exploring, they're having fun, they're looking at these things, but at the same time it all kind of collapses on them, and that's what makes it a good film, in my opinion, is the fact that it really comes together through the acting, but also the storytelling is interesting enough that you're already engaged with every aspect of that. So the fact that Jason Clarke, for example, as the father, is really disturbing in his decision making at moments, and he also says things where you don't agree with him, but you see where he's coming from. Everyone knows somebody like these people in this film, and that's what makes it so relatable, is that you look at it and it's somebody that you could see as your next door neighbor, even your best friend's family, going through something like this. And then by the end of the film, you're kind of in a turmoil of emotions to know what to think. So it's kind of fun, and it plays off that way, and the acting is great because of it, and it's really could have been a hit or miss thing, but they did great. And I definitely got to give Jet Lawrence her own props, because she really stole the show when she needed to, because there was a lot of moments for her that just built and built and built in this film, and I was waiting for something to happen. And I kind of already knew, I guess, what was coming, but it's just you're waiting for it for so long that you just start to squirm in your seat a little bit. You start to really care for these characters, and it was hard to turn away after a while. So definitely a B. And if there was a little bit more to it, I think if there was a little bit more to the scheme of these characters' emotions, then I'd probably give it a higher grade. But I said it with a B right now. For the cinematography, I gotta give the cinematography a B as well. It was really good. It wasn't something that was astounding. There was a lot of great moments. There was a lot of really good cinematography that played with some of the creepiness that it needed to feel, and especially going back to church, it was the cat stole the show, and the scenes that it needed to play off on were fantastic. And I don't know, again, how they got the cat to be so well trained, but some of the cinematography that even plays off on the cat was great. It really built the suspense. And for me, the cinematography can be so hit or miss for horror, because there's so much that needs to go right with it. There's so much that needs to happen in the shadows. There's so much that needs to happen on and off camera that really gets you to feel it. And it can also happen with, the narration and how it's playing and how the acting is going, of course. But that goes hand in hand with the cinematography, as in I need to be able to really engage with these moments. Because I will say, going back to this film, one thing I didn't enjoy as much was Zelda compared to the first Pet Sematary, and specifically because of the cinematography. Now, her moments were terrifying in this film, and I thought it was really, really kind of disturbing that they went so far with it, because it was, already kind of a creepy moment in there, but they went to a realm of really give you nightmares with what happened to her and her story. So if you've never seen the original, or if you haven't seen this one, I won't tell you what happens to the character of Zelda, because she's technically a backstory to someone, but they tell her through flashbacks, and it's really disturbing, but it's well played out. And the cinematography, though, could have been so much better, because they really give you this more horror film feeling to it than what it should have been, which should have been more emotional, in my opinion. It should have been more, psychological disturbance than it should have been visual. And that's those kind of moments when the cinematography needs to know that and give it its own feeling, because sometimes it's those shots you don't tell a story. Sometimes it's those pannings that don't need to be so fast. It's these moments that really just lose their emotion because the cinematography there isn't as well thought out as it could be. And it's nothing against it, but this film has a plenty of great cinematography moments, especially going through these swamps and a lot of the back country areas, and even the graveyard, the pet cemetery itself is really well put together, and they're very, very cool aspects that I think the cinematography plays off on well. But going into a film like this, there's just so much that I think could have been really just extravagated, I guess could be the word, because there's moments that I thought were good, if not great, but they could have been extravagant horror film moments if the cinematography would have played into itself a little bit better. So for that, it gets a B. I wanted to kind of even give it a C+, but I'm going to go with B because there's still nothing it takes away from the film, really. It doesn't take too many good moments away, still tells the right story moments, and still gives the good shots it needs to get across, and still gives you enough eeriness, but could have been better. Overall, I'll probably have to give Pet Sematary 3 out of 5 stars because it wasn't a great film, it wasn't a bad film, and it definitely had its moments. It made me squirm in my chair a little bit, had a few great jump scares that, you're not ready for. But at the same time, by the time the movie was over, you definitely felt a little discombobulated from how it started. You felt a little less satisfied than you thought you would have felt because there was a lot of things happening. There was plenty of characters to follow, and it just kind of rushed, in my opinion. And maybe it sets up for a sequel. I'd not love to give a spoiler away. It depends on how they want to play that out, because there's a lot that, it's kind of up to interpretation, really. Because obviously things like this don't happen in the real world too often. But if you believe in these things, then there's obviously, an endless possibility to what could happen in the Stephen King universe. And I will say this as a spoiler. Sorry, spoiler alert. It's more of an Easter egg spoiler because it doesn't really pertain to anything in the movie. But I thought this was cool. They give you a little hint of a sign in a street moment when the wife Rachel is in a car and she is stuck in traffic on the interstate. And there is a street sign that says Derry, Maine, about 20 miles away. And I thought that was really interesting because if you are 20 miles from Derry, Maine, and everyone that knows Stephen King knows that this is obviously where the events of It are taking place. It is going to come back, very soon, so maybe they're going to establish a Stephen King universe. That could be really, really incredible, considering there's a Conjuring universe that I don't mind. I'm just not a big fan of. I don't think, I don't think the films are bad. I don't think they're great, but there's just not enough there to keep me interested. So, but off topic, we'll get back to Pet Sematary. 3 out of 5 stars. It's a real good restart for readaptations of good horror films. I'd love to see more happen after this. Not just Stephen King, but all kinds of ones. So yeah, if you're interested in horror, I definitely recommend it. I think it's definitely probably the best horror film since Halloween last year. I don't know if there's been too many other good ones that have come out in between, but since then, and maybe even since A Quiet Place. So definitely go check it out if you're into those kind of things. Pet Sematary, it's out now in the theater. Well guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for stopping by this review of Pet Sematary. If you've seen the film, let us know what you thought down here in the comments. As always, hit subscribe over here, and we'll see you next time on Attack of the Review.